News Tonight, the world's first and only LGBTQ plus daily evening news. It's time to queer up the news. It's 8 p.m. Monday, February 7, 2022, and we are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. So many of your important stories we are going to tell this evening on Queer News Tonight.
This is the world's first live daily LGBTQ evening news show, literally out of the closet and into the headlines on Queer News Tonight with Al Ferguson.
Hello and thank you for joining Queer News Tonight. This is the world's first and only unedited live LGBTQ plus evening news show. Whatever happens, you will see it. Queer News Tonight is supported by viewers like you. We are part of the partnership between Happening Out Television Network and Hotspots magazine. Hotspots is celebrating 36 years of the LGBTQ plus experience, and together we bring you the best of LGBTQ plus news, entertainment, and support of our community.
I'm your anchor at Queer News Tonight, Al Ferguson. Let's first welcome anchor John Hayden. John's been a journalist for 27 years and now works for several South Florida outlets, including SFGN, covering politics, arts, and the bar scene, mostly for the latest on happy hours. He spent much of his career covering the stupidity and scandals of Hollywood and interviewed nearly every big name in TV, movies, and music. And John considers the time he had to sit and interview Shirley MacLaine after she yelled at him as the scariest 4 minutes of his life. Good evening, John.
Good evening, Al. I'm so excited to be here. I'm energized off the weekend. I'm ready to have a great show. And how do we have a great show? By welcoming anchor FayWhat.
Good job.
Thank you.
Yeah.
She is a radio and television personality and has a popular blog and YouTube channel aiming to unite the L and the G together. She's a hostess and MC for many South Florida events, an animal advocate, and owner of Faye's Fur Family. And I got to meet several of the family over the weekend, and they are adorable. Also, make sure to catch the FayWhat show, the first LGBTQ plus morning show, Mondays at 9 a.m. Eastern, online and on your smart TV, which means you can crawl out of your bed and crawl into hers. Good evening, Faye.
Good evening, John. You know, your 13-year-old self wants his shirt back. That's all. Your nipples are disrespecting me. All right, let's welcome. I love you, John. Thank you. We had a lot of fun over the weekend. It's great always hanging out with you. And I'm sorry that my dog bit you. All right, let's welcome anchor Orlando Gonzales. He is the executive director for SAVE, recognized as South Florida's longest serving organization dedicated to protecting people who are LGBTQ plus against discriminations. He also served on the board of trustees of the Point Foundation. Good evening, Orlando. Welcome back.
Thank you. Good evening, friends. Let's welcome anchor Gregg Shapiro, a 1999 inductee into the Chicago LGBT Hall of Fame. Gregg is the author of 2 short story collections and 6 books of poetry, including his latest, Fear of Muses. An entertainment journalist whose celebrity interviews and music reviews run in a variety of regional LGBTQ plus and mainstream publications and websites. His movie review called Screensaver can be found in South Florida Gay News, San Francisco Bay Reporter, Area Reporter, RottenTomatoes.com, and more. Good evening, Gregg.
Happy National Fettuccine Alfredo Day. I was going to say,
really, Gregg?
Happy National Periodic Table, but I'm out of my element. We are the reporters for Queer News Tonight.
There's something wrong with you, John.
You can't be more vanilla. I don't even know.
The Bears. I hope he gets a sports story.
Borscht Belt. 2 words. Borscht Belt.
Right.
We are the reporters for Queer News Tonight, and this evening we begin with the queer headlines. The LGBTQ plus community in South Florida and across America is diverse. Our community across the world is vast. And here are the bullet points of the queer news for today, Monday, February 7th, National Black HIV/AIDS Awareness Day.
Well, let's begin by queering up South Florida. Miami judge rejects stand your ground defense in the video brutal anti-gay pride attack. Queer News Tonight has repeatedly reported on the assault of a gay couple at Miami Beach Pride in 2018. The 4 defendants, please forgive me in advance, Juan Carlos Lopez, Luis M. Lonzo Piove, Adonis Diaz, and Pablo Rinaldo Roma Figueroa are all charged with battery under Florida's hate crime enhancement, which increases penalties for committing a crime with prejudice. In a long, drawn-out court battle, the defendants attempted to invoke Florida's Stand Your Ground law that allows for violence in self-defense. On Friday, Miami-Dade Circuit Judge Ariana Fajardo-Orchan threw out the defense, saying, quote, "There's nothing in that video, and I watched it over and over again, that showed me that any of these defendants was in fear for their safety or their lives," end quote. The case is now expected to go to trial after nearly 4 years.
You know, we've been following this also at South Florida Gay News. I did it also at my previous job when I was at 7 News. And it's a disturbing attack. And over the 4 years, talk about justice taking a long time, over the 4 years, they have at times shown an attempt to be contrite. And someone has mentioned restorative justice, which I am all in favor. I'm also in favor of people exploring every legal avenue. But trying to go for stand your ground would have been a dismissal, which means you can't have restorative justice if you don't have justice in the first place. They're now set for the next hearing is March 11th. But after the judge's comments today, I wouldn't be surprised if a plea deal pops up at some point over the next month.
I love this judge. Judge Ariana Fajardo, she is the joint. I love her. And I'm so glad that she was thorough about it. She said that she saw the video at least 100 times and like stopped it and paused it and tried to look at every little detail, before making her decision. And I think it's right. I mean, this can't be under the stand your ground. I mean, these guys are saying something along the lines that they were bumped into and that was why they fought back. And like the judge said, nowhere in the video is there evidence of that.
A hate crime is a hate crime is a hate crime. And this is finally good news, some good news in terms of this.
John, I want to put you on the spot. You arguably for LGBTQ media are following this case the closest. I hear your concern about dismissal. What causes you to think that in terms of how you're following this case? Why do you think it might be dismissed?
Well, if the stand your ground motion had been affirmed.
Oh, you're only talking about it.
Yes, I'm talking about that. If that happened, the case would have been dismissed and there would have been no trial.
Oh, okay. Now I understand. I didn't understand that at first. And in terms of you following this case and what's going to happen next in March, what are your thoughts, feelings about where this is going now that there is some propensity for moving to the courtroom? What do you think is going to happen next?
I think there'll be a plea. I do think there'll be a plea. As for my personal opinion, as a journalist, as I said, I believe in everyone getting as much as they can out of the legal system because I do believe in equal and fair justice. At the same time, you can't say, "Oh, I'm really sorry for this," 1 year, and then another year say, "Oh, I never did this. This never happened."
I was bumped. I was protecting my life.
Yeah. So, but I would expect a plea deal on or before March 11th.
Okay.
And we move on and queer up politics. Gay Republicans,
oxymoron,
defend South Florida's Don't Say Gay bill and blast Chasten Buttigieg. Queer News Tonight reported on Florida's Don't Say Gay bill at a special rally last week. During our broadcast, our special student panel discussed an interview with Chasten Buttigieg on CNN where he spoke out against the bill. He also spoke out on Twitter Spaces last week with Equality Florida. Now, everyone's favorite anti-gay gays, the Log Cabin Republicans, have attacked Chasten for his comments. Log Cabin Republican President Charles Moran said in a statement, quote, "Contrary to Chasten Buttigieg's LGBT fear-mongering and attempt for attention on CNN, Florida's Parental Rights and Education bill will not silence gay people. It will certainly not kill them. All it does is reinforce the common sense belief that teacher-led classroom discussions around sexual gender and identity do not belong in primary schools. Apparently, Pete and Chasten Buttigieg are so far to the left that they're okay with Florida kindergartners learning about gender fluidity and sexual preferences in the classroom." First, I knew when I was in kindergarten that I liked boys. I couldn't verbalize it, and teachers couldn't help me verbalize it, and they won't be able to after this. Second of all, if you're going to sit there and say that this doesn't kill people, you haven't seen the suicide statistics on gay LGBT youth. My God, educate yourself, and if you won't at least be right, shut up.
Go check out the Trevor Project and you'll be able to see how much this really does affect children. And let's talk about sexual orientation in the classroom. You know that it's already spoken in the classroom. Anytime a teacher says falling in love or getting married or childbirth, guess what? You're talking about sex. So, I mean, how is this different?
Absolutely. You know, when I think about the gay log cabin Republicans, I think about the Trojan horse. We don't speak in one voice. They certainly are very different from the majority of us. And I really feel sorry for them because I think that they are really pushing a message that is actually more harmful than it is helpful to anyone. And so I feel sorry for them, and on we go.
I think his name is pronounced Charles Moron.
You know, I've tangled with Charles a number of times, and Charles, I just have to say to you, you know, your opposition to our community's voice on this bill in Florida, tragic bill, and then what Chasten tried to come out and say as a parent, and your attack of him, dude. Your self-internalized homophobia, you're never going to be straight. You're never going to be accepted in the zealot community that you represent. So you should get over it. The other thing that I think is really interesting here is the log cabin Republicans are not preservationists for a political opinion that they feel is important. They are lapping up the milk and the money on the sidelines of those people that are in charge, which it reflects terribly on you. And one day in history, your voice and your opinions are going to reflect terribly on you, and you're going to regret it. And more importantly, your family is going to regret what you have said. I have a very good friend that categorized this story and what the log cabin Republicans and Moran's response to Chasten Buttigieg is. There can also be a thing called roaches for raid. You're a roach supporting raid to your own demise.
Wow. Next, we queer up sports. Team USA, only nation with openly LGBTQ plus Olympic flag bearer, plus record 35 LGBTQ plus athletes.
Yay.
Woo! Olympic history continues to be made by the LGBTQ plus community in the Beijing Winter Olympics. Three-time Olympic speed skater Brittany Bowe, carried the U.S. flag during the opening ceremony alongside five-time Olympic curler John Schuster. With this, Bowe became the first open member of the LGBTQ plus community to carry their country's flag for the Olympics. With 35 openly LGBTQ plus athletes competing, the number of members of our community more than doubles that of the 2018 Winter Olympics.
I hate to be Debbie Downer.
You love it.
But you won't be.
On the one hand, you know, visibility is good, but she was actually a replacement. She wasn't a first choice to carry this. Somebody else had been injured, and she was brought in.
So what does that matter?
I'm just saying, she wasn't. There wasn't like a first choice that she was just a replacement. That's all I'm saying.
I wasn't supposed to be here tonight, and I'm totally fine sitting here. I am totally fine sitting here. But let's not forget, carrying the flag is symbolic and very important.
And acknowledge that observation that John is the second team at Queer News.
Plan B.
Okay, Plan B.
Absolutely. I embrace it. I wear it. We're here for it.
But next time, wear a different shirt.
I love this shirt.
One that fits.
It was chest day. But no, it's incredibly important to symbolic for any country, unless they only have one or two people in their delegation, to be able to carry the flag. But let's not forget, while this is politically good for us, politics are used throughout. The Chinese delegation used a member of the Uyghur tribe, the Uyghur culture, the Muslim culture, that is very oppressed and is getting a lot of attention. And they use someone to say, "Oh, look here, see, we love the Uyghurs," and as he lit the torch. So this is rife with politics. For good, this just happens to be on our side.
I think that, you know, the other point of focus, if it's not the flag bearer, is that there's 35 out athletes, right? And this is double from the last Winter Olympics. This is double, and that's why representation matters, right? So I can imagine that many closeted athletes that were there before this year said, when I come out to represent the U.S., I actually want to be publicly out. And so they were encouraged by those who came out last time, and now we've doubled the number, and that's why representation is critically important, is because people are inspired to be able to be out and open like everyone else.
Does anybody miss the really oiled up guy from the Tonga, PETA.
Mike Pence does.
No, but someone, I think it was from like U.S. Samoa or U.S. Virgin Islands. They have a one-member delegation, and he was out abs up popping.
Yes.
Oh,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, all right.
I was here for that.
You know, it's interesting to me, first, I think the representation of the flag bearer is absolutely awesome. Sorry, Debbie Downer. And, but, you know, a couple of gay-related notes. I watched the opening ceremonies. I'm watching hours and hours. I watched all evening last night on ice skating. It's fantastic. But two big notes to me that I think are really important, and one of the most important is our first medal over the weekend was a silver medalist in snowboarding. And what was really great, besides getting the medal, was that it was a special snowboard that when she came off the hill and you saw it, and she flies over the camera, the snowboard is made by Prada with the Prada logo on it.
What?
And I thought, oh, the Olympics has arrived. So I loved every LGBT gay guy went, now I love snowboarding.
Yeah.
And then the second thing that I thought was really cool is, while I'm thrilled about the amount of representation, we're having a little bit of a problem with the Winter Olympics for gay guys because we like Puerto Vallarta more than Aspen. It's just true. It's just true.
Can I say one more thing that I really loved about that event that you were talking about? The person who eventually got the gold medal was the last one to snowboard. So the American who ended up with silver had just gotten beaten, and the person slides in and she runs out to greet her, tackles her, and the bronze medalist comes out, and they all did this huge group hug, and I was like, that is the Olympic spirit.
Yeah.
I was like, that really, that moment moved me.
They had clothes on though, right?
Unfortunately, yes.
Okay. Right. It wasn't an Olympic
next.
moment. It was.
It's not on the beach.
Well, up next, let's queer up gay culture. Alphonso David, former president of HRC, sues for racial bias. Former president of the Human Rights Council, Alphonso David, is suing the organization over his firing. He claims they did so because he is black. David alleges that the Human Rights Campaign has a racist, biased culture and a deserved reputation for unequal treatment of its non-white employees, with a culture where non-white staffers were marginalized, tokenized, and denied advancement to high-level positions. David, who became the first black president in the organization's 40-year history in 2019, was terminated by the board of directors for both HRC and the HRC Foundation, the organization's educational arm, after David was named in a probe by the New York Attorney General Letitia James investigating the allegations of sexual misconduct by former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, for whom David served as in-house counsel prior to joining HRC.
Where do we begin with this? We didn't think this story was going to go away, right, fellas? I mean, here's the reason why Mr. Alphonso got fired, was because he was mentioned in that investigative report on Cuomo at least 36 times. That's why he was fired, not because he's black. Now, my own personal opinion, of course. Now, one other thing, his predecessor before him was paid substantially much more than he was, but that would be something that he should have gone to, HR or dealt with his contract situation in doing so if he was unhappy with what he was being paid. So I mean, I don't know, is he pulling the black card? Is that what he's trying to do? I don't know.
Well, and I know we're going to talk about this a little bit later in the show, but it starts to highlight the schisms and the subcultures within a subculture, and we're going to talk about that. But it also says that a lot of times, I don't know the merits of his lawsuit. I haven't read the lawsuit, but it reminds me that Brian Flores, the recently fired Miami Dolphins head coach, is suing the NFL and all 32 teams, saying that people of color don't get a fair shake in the NFL. And it's becoming increasingly clear that the best path, unfortunately, is going to be not through discourse like this, but through the courts.
And I hope he's not expecting to get his job back because this is not a way to make friends.
No. A couple of notes. First off, to my observation directly to Alphonso David, please go back and watch my comments about Charles Moran at the Log Cabin Republicans. I'll pause. Second, I don't know what the merits of this lawsuit. I don't know what they are. He has every right to do this. He has every right to sue the HRC. We will, at Queer News Tonight, follow this story very closely because it is an interesting and important story. But you are suggesting in your release and the summary of this case that the HRC has a history of racial biased culture. Those are words that generally the HRC is not associated with. So you have to wonder the stretch of maybe his argument about what went on at HRC in terms of equality. If it's true, David is going to sue the pants off the HRC. But if it isn't, go back to my comments on Charles Moran at Log Cabin Republicans. Because, dude, you're weighing in to suggest one of the great equality organizations in the world is biased. And that's a pretty serious charge that we will follow this story closely. However, Fay's note is what's so interesting to me in this situation. He is completely called out on his association and defense of Andrew Cuomo, who could have been president of the United States. So it is a situation that not only may have been inappropriate, but he actually may have defended in a non-progressive, anti-discriminatory or discriminatory way against women that Cuomo was in some way inappropriate or worse. Your association with that is why the HRC justifies their termination. We will watch this closely, but my goodness.
Next, we report on our partnership with Sunshine Cathedral, the world's largest queer church right here in Fort Lauderdale. We're broadcasting from our permanent set here at Sunshine and supporting that partnership. Happening Out Television Network broadcasts the largest LGBTQ+ religious live broadcast in the world, as more than 30,000 watch every Sunday at 10:30 a.m. Eastern. Watch this.
Hello, my name is Peter Basuito, also known as My Big Funny Peter. I'm an internationally known comedian and entertainer, and the Sunshine Cathedral is definitely my queer church.
Well, we're going to finish tonight's Queer News headlines with a segment we call LGBTQ+ Flash News.
LGBTQ+ Flash News. South Dakota governor signs cruel and dangerous anti-LGBTQ ban into law. Queer News Tonight previously reported on the bill that South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem was pushing just before Christmas. Last week, she signed it into law. In a tweet, the ACLU said, quote, South Dakota Governor Noem just signed into law the first ban on trans student athletes of the year. This cruel and dangerous bill is part of a coordinated attack on trans youth moving nationwide. This moment doesn't end here. Trans kids need us all in the fight now, end quote. Because South Dakota has decided to go all in on anti-trans rhetoric, the State House also passed a bill that would ban transgender kids from using restrooms that match their identity. Do you think that Governor Wackadoodle Blow-Up Doll is doing this to get Governor Death Sentence attention? I mean, like, big boy, I could be your running mate.
Well, this is definitely a coordinated effort. We saw this in Florida last year, and it's a copycat bill of what we saw. And so we have to keep remembering that our opposition is coordinated, they're unified, they're organized, and we need to do the same.
You know, the South Dakota governor, I won't say her name, Voldemort. This South Dakota governor runs a state that has a population smaller than Broward County, Florida. So why are you so visible nationally? Well, I think we got it because she's going to be somebody's running mate.
Wow. Parents in South Dakota, you got a kid, you love them, they trans, they want to play a sport, move.
Right.
Governor Nome is a loathsome woman who is embroiled in scandal. She's being investigated by her state's own attorney general for Trump-level nepotism and hiring. So she will fit right into the Republican Party going forward.
Yes.
And we move on with LGBTQ plus flash news with
You're kind of angry today, John. Did
I
you?
know, a little bit. It must be the shirt that's too tight.
Yeah.
That has him so angry. His nipples are like, ah!
Well, I'll flash them. In flash news,
Please don't.
We have breaking details on Whitney Houston secretly being gay and falling for a woman. Writer Garrett Kennedy's new book, Didn't We Almost Have It All? In Defense of Whitney Houston, comes out tomorrow. And in it, he reveals that the diva who dominated the MTV era was a lesbian. In the summer of 1980, when she was 17, she introduced herself to a stunning, slender 19-year-old Robin Crawford when they both were working as youth counselors at the East Orange Community Center in New Jersey. In the book, Kennedy writes how they came together that summer evening saying, quote, "Their lips met, bound by all that had been unspoken between the two. That first kiss was long and warm like honey," end quote. In her 2019 memoir, Robin wrote about her time with Whitney, saying it was, quote, "free and honest, loving, tender. We both wanted to touch and explore each other, and we did until we fell asleep in each other's arms," end quote.
Is this too soon? By the way, it's too soon? No.
Oh,
You'll
that's all I have. That's all I have.
Wait, you're spent over the lesbian story? All right.
Well, and this just might be the thing that finally drives a stake through Whitney's former disco diva and now religious fanatic mother, Sissy's cold heart.
And so there's just so much to say about all this, but I will just say I miss Whitney. I'm Team Whitney. She's my diva. So that's it.
I'm sorry, I haven't heard a word you all said because I'm singing in my head. I'm every woman inside of me. Oh, wait. Too soon. Too soon.
Whitney Houston was a wonderful power top lesbian from Jersey, like me. LGBTQ plus flash news. What's hot this week from Scott Holland's Hotspots magazine? So every week, Hotspots magazine brings you all the hottest events in South Florida. Here are some of our favorites for this week. On Wednesday, February 9th, Actors Playhouse at the Miracle Theater presents On Your Feet, the inspiring true story about heart, heritage, and two people who believed in their talent and each other to become an international sensation, Gloria and Emilio Estefan. On Saturday, February 12th, AHF presents a West Side Story burlesque show at 6 p.m. at La Sola Intercoastal Promenade Park. Free tickets available at ahfevents.org. Also on February 12th, La Boy celebrates Valentine's weekend by presenting Chichi LaRue and two of her sexiest men, Arad Winwin and Alam Wernick. Yeah. To find out more what's going on in South Florida, check out Hotspots magazine online and on stands right now. Chichi LaRue, I'm coming for you.
I'm a 4-minute walk to La Boy, so I will most definitely be there. And if Arad wants to finally do a bottom scene, well, I'll be there with a camera.
Well, it sounds like a fun weekend.
It certainly does, and Hotspots always sizzles.
I could not help but notice West Side Story, a burlesque version from AHF. I don't know if you noticed closely in that poster like I did. It came right to my attention. Wait, it's International Condom Day 2022. I wonder what I'm going to be, how I'm going to celebrate.
What will you be wearing?
Wait, yeah.
Well, let's do LGBTQ plus flash news. A new study reveals that LGBTQ plus people have highest COVID-19 vaccination rates.
Yay.
Last week, survey data published in the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention's Morbidity and Mortality Weekly Report have shown that 85% of gay and lesbian adults have received at least one dose of their COVID-19 vaccination, compared with 76% of heterosexual adults and 76% of bisexual adults. The results were taken from a survey conducted between August 29th, 2021 and October 30th, 2021, which involved upwards of 150,000 respondents. When it came to the data on race and ethnicity, white, gay, and lesbian adults had the highest vaccination rates at 94% for white men and 88.5% for white women. Vaccination rates were lowest amongst all Black LGBTQ plus people. And I have to say, the legacy and the history of distrust in clinical trials and in vaccinations still looms and hangs over us for Black and brown people. And so if that history didn't exist, I promise that these numbers would be different.
I'm super excited at the 94% vaccination rate number.
Yeah.
The one thing that's disappointing is it comes in one specific set of LGBT. Our numbers are high across the board, but 94%. It's why you can get out there, you can feel safe, and you can start to relive your life again.
Let's be honest, we're just selfish and we just want to slap uglies, okay, without worrying about stuff. So, hey, whatever, we're smart, okay.
What is slap uglies mean?
You know what slap uglies is.
But those numbers are 3 months old. I'll tell you the newest number today, 64%. That's the amount of the American population at large that has gotten vaccinated. Those are terrible numbers. But fortunately, the gays are leading the way because we know pandemics. Many of us go to doctors because we are HIV positive and have to see a doctor regularly, or we're on PrEP, and so we have to make sure our livers are functioning properly. So we're used to seeing doctors, and we lead the way.
Do you know why those numbers are so poor? Only 4 people in South Dakota have been vaccinated.
Well, again, like John said, because we have already lived through a horrifying epidemic, and we're just smarter, that's all.
Well, we're going to leave Flash News, and we're going to queer up my commentary about gay culture. The gay guru view. I always make a joke, but racism is no joke. 3 years ago, when I moved to South Florida for this news gig here, there was a lot I had to learn about LGBTQ. I had to learn about this area and things related to it. This may be the gayest place on planet Earth, but frequently it can be infuriating. That's a different commentary. I'll do that some other day. But my friends know I always make a joke. Today I have race on my mind, and it's no joke at all. It's a new American phenomenon that is even getting worse. Black Lives Matter, trans exclusion in sports and healthcare, now the attack on our LGBTQ students, the way you know who I'm talking about. My friends Tucker, Sean, and Laura, the Gang of 3 at Fox News, they figured us out and how to solve it all. It's called Don't Say Gay. And get your crony allies like Governor Ronnie to be enforcement of the erasure of an entire community. Does LGBTQ plus support our Black community, our lesbian community, our Latin community? Don't even get me started on support for our trans community. And I'm talking mostly about white gay guys. I'm hearing anecdotal examples of racism even at our Wilton Manors queer shows, bars, and more. When I moved here, I learned a phrase from Richard Gray at Visit Lauderdale. You know, the only Tourism Out 100 person ever in history? He said, "We are a majority-minority community," meaning Latinos, Black, women, and other traditionally marginalized minorities make up the majority of the population. Great! Right. But what does all of that have to do with white men? That's what we ask. And white gay men? Perhaps we're asking that too. This weekend I had such an odd experience. I want to tell you about it. First, did you know it's Black History Month? Are you hearing much about the Black LGBTQ experience this month? This gay white guy isn't. So imagine how happy I was when Jameer Baptiste and others formed support for Afro Pride and a fundraising cookout at Pride Center at Equality Park last Saturday. Sounds great, doesn't it? Until there was a conflict and the parties involved separated. Leadership at Afro Pride set up a counter cookout just 2 miles away at the exact same time. 2 LGBTQ Black events at the exact same time, competing with each other. It seems apparently our differences are not just between the L's and the G's and the T's, but amongst even our own groups, like Black. I went to both events and had another unique experience. I was a white gay guy in a Black LGBTQ world, and frankly, was welcomed warmly. In both places, by the way. But I realized, ow, this is exactly what the Black LGBTQ community experiences in this minority status 365 days a year on Wilton Drive. It made me realize we have just as far to go in our own LGBTQ South Florida community as we do in Minneapolis or Brunswick, Georgia. And racism is not just a straight thing. That same day, I went to a birthday party for my friend Tony Lima. He is a Cuban-American Latino, and all 16 at the dinner were Latino, except, me. First, I'm honored. But second, I was keenly aware of how much Spanish was being spoken, which I don't speak. We joked about white privilege and the Latina LGBTQ experience. I participated in the jokes, led most of them actually. Again, for the third time in just a single day, I was the minority. My experience was not their experience. My norms were largely different than my Latino friends. This show has my name on it. It says Al Ferguson, a white, privileged, gay male. I am not part of the majority-minority South Florida community. I'm not part of it. So what's my point? The white experience in LGBT is no better than the straight community. Identity culture is real, and identity politics is dangerous. For a brief time on Saturday, I was the minority. The difference is that Sunday morning, I woke up white and male, and I can do better. We can all do better. And if we want to endure what we are watching from our friends at Fox News and in Tallahassee, we must do better.
Al, there's so much packed into your commentary, and there's two things that really sort of stand out to me. Number one is I only think of Wilton Drive as like white male dominated. So I'm still sort of getting past the sort of description of it being minority majority. I think the minority is the gay group in a majority environment. I don't think that it's race-based. I think Wilton Manors is a white dominant environment. So I'm still processing all of that you're saying. The second is inter-movement fighting never helps us all.
Yeah.
Ever. And so the story that you tell is very saddening because to me, it only shows a crack in the movement when in a critical year when we need to be united and ready to fight together. Like, I hate to see that crack. And so you said a lot to think about, and I'm still processing it all.
You know,
That's a good start. Process.
And I was lucky enough to be able to spend the day with you. We went to both events together, and I had a lovely day getting out there.
Another white gay man.
Yeah, another. But I'm going to be writing about the two different prides, which kind of has a divide and falter feel to them, in this week's SFGN on Stands and Online on Thursday. But I would say that we weren't the minority at the cookout at the Pride Center. I mean, I don't believe enough was done to engage people, to let them know about, to engage the Black community, to let them know that this was happening. Because most of the people there were our friends, and it was great, but I don't really feel that we were talking to the people that really need to be reached out to, whether they know it or not.
I was super confused. I was confused. I didn't know if I was going to the right Afro Pride or not, and I didn't understand the separation. I just wanted to go and help Afro Pride. I wanted to be there for my Black brothers and sisters. That was my point, you know. And so then I get there, and then someone tells me, "Oh, there's another one 2 miles away." I was like, "What?" Like, you know, there's not enough of us to be separating. We need to be unified, especially this year, like it was said before. You know, and I mean, did you felt welcomed at both places, like you said, right? But you did feel the separation as well.
Absolutely. And I had dinner with you.
Yes.
You sat across from me at Tony's dinner. And it was just interesting to me, first and foremost, a good opportunity for white gay males to be in situations like that, because it was a little bit of a wake-up call of going, we talked about this. I am definitely not this table. Definitely not this table. And oh, please don't cry for me, Argentina, because Faye experiences that as a Latina lesbian every single day. I never do.
Yeah, and 9 out of 10.
That's privilege.
And 9 out of 10 places that I'm at, I'm always surrounded by white gay men or gay men, and I'm always the minority. But the difference is that at that table of 16 other people, when they were speaking Spanish, you didn't know what they were saying.
That's right.
You understand? For me as a woman, surrounded by a bunch of men, whatever's being said, I still can understand. Yeah. That's a divide right there. You know, and then you don't notice in such a place like Miami that's so culturally driven by the Spanish language. I didn't notice how much Spanish we were speaking at the table. So I look over at you and I'm like, oh, qué pena. See, I just did it again.
Can I just say one more thing? Saturday evening, I didn't get to go to I was invited, and I wish I could have been there for Tony, but I was at the Broward Center where Slow Burn Theater is doing the show Once on This Island, which is a wonderful story, amazingly performed. The dancing is great, the singers can wail, but it's a really good story, perfect for Black History Month. If you have a weekend evening free, please go see that, because they're a great troupe to begin with, and this show is truly exceptional.
You know, one final thought before we close the show. We have a midterm election. We have lots of things at stake in our community. We are a community that have been pulled together somewhat artificially in the acronyms of L and G and B and T and Q and plus and allies. If we can't find common ground in our own community, we don't have a chance.
Yeah.
And I really firmly believe that.
That made me
Well said.
Yeah, definitely. So that's it. That's today's news for the LGBTQ plus community on the world's first and only daily LGBTQ plus evening news show. Is our community important to you?
Well, yes, it is, Faye. And if it is for you, then help us by liking and subscribing. Ring the bell for updates, share this news with your friends and family, and teach all your relatives over 40 how to use Roku.
Roast this broadcast in the many groups you're a member of. Tonight's stories about our community deserve the attention of your family and friends.
Queer News Tonight is the only live LGBTQ plus digital television show in the world that is out of the closet and into the headlines. We need your support.
Well, as we've said, if our community is to grow, we must tell our stories and bring them to the attention of the broader world. This is the only place in the world that tells these type of LGBTQ plus stories in motion and sound. And that is the passion of the Happening Out Television Network and Queer News Tonight. I'm your anchor, Al Ferguson, and on behalf of these LGBTQ plus reporters, the anchors of Queer News Tonight, including FayWhat, John Hayden, Orlando Gonzales, and Gregg Shapiro. We will see you daily at 8 p.m. Good night. LGBTQ plus news is vital for our community and for the broader world as a whole. We have enough enemies at Fox News. Tucker, Sean, and Laura are loud. We need passionate allies. Happening Out Television Network, Queer News Tonight, and It's Happening Out are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. Our community needs your support. Like this broadcast and subscribe now to ensure the growth of the entire LGBTQ plus community.